I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting far too long. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Anthrax. I'm a drag king, and today we're going to be doing a look inspired by some of the visuals from Gary Numan's Berserker album. The album recently had its 40th anniversary, and to celebrate that, he released an extended version that includes several new tracks, I think 4 or 5. I'm just going to give some of my thoughts on the album, some of my thoughts on the visuals, and we'll talk a little bit about Gary Numan. Who doesn't want to talk a little bit about Gary Numan? I do. And maybe you do too, and that's why you're here, right? So first, I want to take a look at one of the visuals here. So you can see his makeup much clearer in here. Look at him! So a couple things actually stand out to me here if we take a look at this headshot with his makeup. First of all, apparently it took him 2.5 hours to do his makeup, and he did it every single night of the tour. He also did his hair because he didn't bleach it. And if you know about coloring your hair, the color stays way better if you bleach it. So he had to dye it blue every other day for this tour just to keep all of the visuals together. Didn't want to wear a wig, but honestly, if you ask me, I think this is drag. I think he's doing drag, but who am I? I love this sort of downturned eye shape that he has, where it emphasizes the bottom of the eye and then you get that angle at the top. He's got very long eyelashes as well, and you can see it a little bit better in some of the other frames of the video. And it honestly looks like he's wearing false eyelashes, but the only false eyelashes I have, maybe I can find it. The only false eyelashes I have are huge, and that's not quite what we're going for. And I'm not cutting them because this is my only pair of false eyelashes and I like them. You can also see he has this sort of angular eyebrow that I'm really into, that I do for a lot of my drag. And you get the colors at the edge of the eyebrow as well, and at the edge of his makeup over here. The eyeliner isn't too overstated, there's no wing or anything like that. He also has blue contour, colored contour, which I think could be a really fun idea to experiment with. It's a very cohesive look, and if you know about Gary Numan's sort of showmanship and the things that he does, he commits absolutely fully to these ideas. We actually saw him live when he was a supporting act for Ministry. The only reason he didn't steal the show was because Ministry was after him, and Ministry did a phenomenal job. But Gary Numan is very well known for having these really developed concepts for his albums and live shows and absolutely committing fully to them. And I really enjoyed the aesthetics and visuals for this one. He said he was very much inspired by trying to make everything feel like a huge church. Like this was his cathedral, and especially for when they did the concert film for this tour originally in the 80s. That was his idea behind everything. A lot of white. You can even see to the point where some of his features get lost. So I think it could be a very interesting idea to try and incorporate some of those aspects with my drag, and we'll see how it goes. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go put my hair up, put a base coat of foundation on, and we will get started. If you don't know too much about Gary Numan, that's okay. You've probably heard at least one of his songs before. He had a big hit in the 80s called Cars. Here in my car, I feel here in my car. In the wider sense, he's had a lot of influence on the industrial scene, so bands like Ministry, but this album came out a bit before he found his footing in industrial music. It's much more of an 80s synth pop vibe, but it just has this grand feeling to it. And from my understanding, this was either his first or second album on his own independent label called Numanoid Records. A lot of his ideas at the time weren't, not to say they weren't widely accepted, but especially in the late 70s, there was still a push against music that incorporated too much electronics, you know, too many synthesizers, and Gary Numan was one of those people at the forefront that were pushing for synthesizers to become a bigger part of music. So this album comes from his independent venture. And personally, I can kind of see where he arrived at industrial. You can see how he gets there from here. So you can see a lot of synth pop influences in this album, I'd say. One of the most prominent ones was probably David Bowie. You can hear a lot of Bowie influence in his vocals. It's certainly got that specific kind of drawl to it. Gary Numan takes a lot of his influence for these ideas from science fiction. The album has a lot of synth in it, but it's still such a big, heavy sound. I'd advise maybe like not listening to it on your phone, maybe using like your car speakers or headphones just to get the whole experience of that sound. Because I found when I listened to it on my phone, it ends up kind of tinny and you don't really get the full breadth of what he's actually doing with the sound. There's a lot of live instruments in it as well. It's not all totally synth, but I feel like that also lends itself to that very big, developed, grandiose sound that he's going for, and it makes sense when you put it together with like the church-esque visuals that he wanted to go for. Apparently at one point, I think it was after Cars became the breakout hit that it was, he went on a tour that was so massive and expensive and elaborate, it ended up losing money. Which, if you have the privilege of going to a Gary Numan show or have the ability to go, I'd totally recommend it. He's an absolutely fantastic performer. You can tell he loves what he does with a passion, especially live performance. Now the foundation is done. I'm going to do my eyebrows. His eyebrows are kind of thin, honestly. They are still very kind of sharp and downturned. It's difficult because I don't think he blocks his eyebrows, or at least it didn't look that way to me, but my thought is that it was his eyebrows and then he put makeup over them, and that's why the edges sort of turned out blue, but then that doesn't quite make sense because the entire eyebrows aren't blue. They are more dark looking than that. But maybe that's just how it turned out if he didn't block them and he has dark eyebrows. The eyebrow looks so tiny. I don't normally do my eyebrows so small. Does that look even? I mean, probably not. It's about as even as it's gonna get. Let me set this with some powder. Now, let me set that with powder. It says it's using 30% of the CPU, but my laptop is still going off the handle. I think it's because it's plugged in and the battery heats up. Now that foundation and eyebrows are taken care of, let me figure out how I want to do my eyes. So I do enjoy the way he has the blue on the very edge of his eyebrows, but he also is very minimalist about the actual amount of eye makeup he does. There's a bit of eyeliner. I mean, I say a bit, it's a bit to me. It doesn't look like a lot to me. Maybe it's a lot to him. I'm also not super sure it was intentional to leave the very corner of his eyes skin colored. Maybe it was. He spent 2.5 hours on it. I have this Cloud9 palette from ColourPop that we're going to be digging into for the white. It's called All Fluff. And since this is inspired, I want it to have a bit of my touch too, so I want everything to be very glittery. I actually have this sort of like yellowish color here called Pure Bliss on the corners very sparingly. Can you even see that? I don't know if I can see that. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna dip into droplets here and do that for the lid. And see, you can see that one. I've been having this issue lately. Like, these shimmers just don't show up. They look really cool in the palette, and then they give me nothing. They have like this chunky glitter here called Look Up. I don't even know what it's supposed to... It is just glitter, there's no color. I'm gonna try some of that. Okay, this is where we're gonna start to get a little experimental with it, is figuring out what I wanna do for the blue part of the eyeshadow. So Gary Numan does do a bit of a deeper blue, but I'm gonna start with a lighter one just sort of on the outside where my actual eyebrow is turned out blue. I don't know why. I'm gonna go over my eyebrows and then, well, actually, let me try going over them with a bit of blue. Okay, I'm into it. I'm into like a slightly blue eyebrow. So I'll do the dark blue. It was sort of like near the apex of his eyebrow. And then maybe we can put some of the lighter blue towards the middle. Beneath the eyebrows, I want to maintain that just little bit of white here. That's pretty cool. I like how that looks, actually. Next, I think I'm gonna do the contour, because I normally do contour before I do my eyes, and I kind of skipped that step. And the question here is, I normally do like my forehead and my nose and everything, but his contour is very simple. So what would it look like if I do all of my contour? Should I do all of my contour? I don't know. I like how that's looking. I do like how that's looking. Let me put some glitter on top. Okay, eyeliner for real. What I'm interested in the most is how he definitely emphasizes sort of a downturned eye. It makes him look sadder, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it works very well with the album because a lot of it does get into that sort of... It doesn't necessarily sound super sad, and I wouldn't say there's a lot of sad songs on it, but... I think what I have to do is I have to shape my eye by making it rounder and heavier towards the edges than just consistent like I normally do. Now... Oh, that's right. I wanted to put a bit of blue into the eyeliner. I don't even know if this is gonna really show up in the eyeliner because the eyeliner's so dark, but we'll give it a try. So what I'm gonna do next, because I don't have false eyelashes that would be that sort of short length that I think Gary Numan used, I'm just gonna use mascara. What I'll do at least, or, you know, try to do, is get in a good couple of coats of mascara and then do my bottom lashes as well, which I normally don't bother doing. And then finally, to wrap this up, what I'm gonna do is I will put on a lip, and for the lip I'll have a bit of color in the middle, and then out to the sides it'll go black. And then we'll go in with the black. Okay, I'm gonna call that done. So look is finished. I think it does evoke Gary Numan a fair bit, at least sort of like a cross between what he did with Berserker and My Drag, which is what I was going for. I'm gonna step into the whole outfit. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of white clothes because some of us are prone to sweat stains. So I pulled together what I could get from my closet, and hopefully that fits the vibe a little bit of what he did for the Berserker tour. And I'll get back to you and give you some final thoughts about the album. And here we are. This is the final look. This is like the only white shirt I own now. Some white gloves. And I even put on pants this time. Isn't that fun? I think I do like how it all turned out. Would I say this is belonging on the stage with Gary Numan? Maybe not. I think the hair is like a little too big, but I do love this wig and I do like this outfit, and I think this was a pretty successful look, if I do say so myself. On to my thoughts on the actual album itself. I think it's a great album if you're into synth pop, if you're into David Bowie, if you're into just synth music in general. I think it's great. And I know that sort of loses its meaning now because anybody has access to a synth if they want it. All you have to do is get like FL Studio and you can make your own synth noises. Anyone can do it. But back then it took a lot more programming, it took a lot more effort, it took so many moving parts to come together to create music. And you can see just how much effort is put into these pieces, with everything from the actual samples used, to the melodies, to the effects put on it in post. Just everything has to work together, and it works together really well on Berserker. I will say, the album is a bit front-loaded. It could be a me issue. Again, I am not a fan of slow music, just in general. There's a mood for it and a vibe, but it has to be very specific for me. If you like the slower, heavier music, that's sort of like the mid to end of the album, the original album, not the bonus tracks. The bonus tracks are all sort of slower and heavier with this sort of moody nature surrounding them. It's not bad. It's just not something I'm super into. I'm into a lot of the gritty noises that he was able to produce at that time, and even if it's not considered an industrial album by any stretch of the imagination, you can still see the machinations there, the sounds that would eventually come together to create industrial. In that way, it kind of sets itself apart from a lot of the synth pop at the time. Standouts for me, the title track, Berserker. I think it's a fantastic introduction to the album. My Dying Machine is also a good one. I think it is sort of emblematic of Gary Numan's tendency to incorporate these sci-fi stories into his work. I think he does a fantastic job with storytelling in general, and it really works into his live shows as well because he has such clear ideas of where he wants to take a concept. It's a great song. I really enjoyed it. The Hunter as well, I also enjoyed, and The Secret. Kind of went out of order there. Berserker, The Secret, My Dying Machine, and The Hunter were the ones I enjoyed. The extended versions are good if you enjoy electronic music in general, and maybe you want a longer version that just contains all of these themes and ideas that are still there. It's a good listen. It's a good listen. Nothing's really done to deviate from the originals, but it gives you just something to put on if you need something to listen to that's a little bit different. And it sounds great too, which is a plus. I really enjoyed the album. I enjoyed the visuals with it as well. Is it my favorite Gary Numan album? I would hesitate to say that, but I'm not gonna not enjoy Gary Numan. Come on. He's like truly a visionary, and it doesn't show in all of his work, but I enjoy an over-the-top concept. I think he really brought it very well to the tour that we saw with Ministry, even if I hadn't really listened to any of his stuff at that point. I knew him as the Here in My Car guy. And I'm looking stuff up about him. Oh my god, apparently he's a huge deal. And he is. He deserves to be a huge deal. Give it a listen if you need something different to listen to. I wouldn't say it appeals to everybody, but I would say it's a very good synth album. I would say there's a lot of things to enjoy about it, and I did enjoy a lot of things about the album. I love the visuals, I love the storytelling. If you want to watch his live concert as well, I think it's live at Hammerfell. It's something weird. I'll put it in post. Gary Numan is a phenomenal artist, and if you have the chance to see him live, he is a phenomenal live performer. I would definitely jump on that, because not to be like, time's running out, but a lot of people active in the late 70s, early 80s, they're getting old, and it's gonna be really, really sad to see them disappear from here. So while you can get that experience, you should go out and experience any live music that you can, in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed the look. I hope you enjoyed the review, reaction, whatever. And I hope you have a fantastic day and a fantastic life. Bye bye!